transaction analysis and optional fields module is installed, an optional fields icon will be visible within Common Services. When selected, there will be 3 sub-icons. The optional tables icon is required if a 5.2 or earlier Accpac module is still in use, and if that module requires optional tables to be linked with optional fields. Starting with Accpac version 5.3, optional fields changed significantly. For those who still have older versions of selected modules, possibly because a third-party program is being used that is not yet compatible with version 5.3 or higher, or if all modules have not been upgraded yet, this icon is needed to define optional table validation lists that can be assigned to the older version optional fields. This course does not cover the creation or use of the pre-5.3 optional fields and tables. The optional fields conversion icon converts optional fields for Accpac databases using version 5.2 or earlier to the new 5.3 and higher structure. Because optional fields operate differently starting with version 5.3, a conversion process is required if any previously entered optional field and table information is to be converted to the new version. Selecting this icon, there are 2 sections. The top section displays any optional fields that exist in the old format, where the lower section displays the optional fields that already exist within the current version, or the optional fields that will be converted from the fields listed above. In this database, there are no pre-5.3 optional fields, so the top portion is blank. If there were optional fields listed in the section at the top, simply indicate which optional fields are to be converted using the yes/no column here, and click the Generate Optional Fields button at the bottom left corner of the screen. The system creates those optional fields in the new format and converts any field values. It's probably worth noting that pre-5.3 optional fields can only be defined as text, date, or amount. Version 5.3 offers significant additions to field types. However, the additional types can only be utilized by creating optional fields from scratch using the new format. It's also probably worth noting that if you are converting from a pre-5.3 database where optional fields were in use, it requires that the optional fields must first be converted before converting the module where the optional fields were in use. The optional fields icon is where optional fields are added or modified, regardless of the module where it is intended to be used. Let's say some of the items you sell contain hazardous materials, and you want to indicate at the item level the type of hazard associated with the item. First, give the optional field a title, call it hazardous for example, enter a description, hazardous items, then choose the type of field to be created. The field can be text, a monetary amount, a number, allowing characters 0 through 9 only, an integer, where a number indicates a choice, a toggle option of either yes or no, a date field, and a time field. For the purpose of the hazardous code, select text. This way, any alphanumeric character can be entered. Depending on the field type selected, the length field may appear. The length can be from 1 to 60 characters. This represents the code length, not the description length. Enter 15. For those field types other than yes/no, determine if the field is to be validated. Validation indicates that the field is to be restricted to specific choices. For example, if the field determined warranty period, you may want to restrict the field to 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. You may not want someone to enter 45 days or 256 weeks. In the case of the hazardous item optional field, let's specify that it is to be validated. If the field is validated, indicate if blank values are allowed. By deselecting this option, Accpac will display an error message if someone attempts to leave the field blank. Allowing blank values indicates that the field can be left blank for a particular item. For our purposes, possibly because not all items in inventory are considered hazardous. Otherwise, a not hazardous option will need to be created as a choice and assigned to those items that are not hazardous. If the optional field is validated, enter the valid hazardous item choices. Choices such as asbestos, chemical, explosive, uranium, and so on. When finished, click the Add button. Once the optional field is added, it needs to be assigned to one or more Accpac accounting functions. In this example, the hazardous optional field needs to be attached to items within inventory control.
Now let's take a look at how to assign optional fields.